my topic is about search. It's called In Search of Good Search. So we will investigate what is needed to have a good search. We will have a look into some good practices, also some bad practices, some aspects that need to be considered, and what works and what doesn't, and why search is sometimes complex, sometimes not. As Melissa said, my name is Daniel. I'm a UX manager at OpenResearch. I work in the Vienna office of OpenResearch. So it's also a pleasure for me to be here in Pristina to share this topic with you guys. So I will start my presentation with a quote from Don Norman, who says that the best search designs meet people where they are, anticipate their needs, and make information easy to find. So when regarding search, it's always important to know what users might look for, how they might look for it, and try to anticipate that somehow. And with that being said, you can see that search is a very important topic, also not only for me, but I think in general when we talk about software development. And why is search so important? Because we want to eliminate guesswork. So we cannot guess how to find something or how to get to that information that we know. We want to eliminate that guesswork and want to have precision. So one thing is that search, of course, is a powerful tool. We know it as a tool. We're using it every day, not really thinking about it, what is behind all of that, but everyone knows it, everyone uses it. And as said before, it minimizes guesswork and also should offer shortcuts to information. And why are we using search? Because all of us are search dominant users, some more, some less, but you know these people that are even too lazy to type in the domain of a website. They go to Google and put in Facebook or put in Instagram and then navigate to that website. And also search is important to keep your users, because when you have a search that is ineffective, then you might also have users that are frustrated and might use another tool or another website or another software. So why do users search? The first thing is to anticipate the user intent. And here we can differentiate between three types of user intent. The first one is navigational intent. So here the user roughly knows what he is looking for and where he wants to go. So he also knows a little bit more than with the other intents how to formulate his or her search query. So for example, like mentioned before, would be Facebook login or cancel subscription. So they know where to go and type that in. Then we have informational intent. Here the user doesn't necessarily need to go somewhere, to navigate somewhere, but is in search of information. So one example query would be, how does AI search work? He's not looking like maybe for a specific page, but for the information that is behind the search query. And then we also have a transactional intent, which is where the user really wants to do something. So he wants to buy shoes. Let's say he types in buy black shoes or start free trial for VPN subscription. So here he wants to do something. He might not necessarily know which VPN service he wants to use, but he knows that he wants to do something. So this is the transactional intent. And with all these intents, we have like a process or a timeline, and there we want to have a short look into it. So when searching for something, you start with a search input. Here you can have simple inputs like formulate a query, input a normal query, or you have extended inputs where you already filter before you search or do some configurations. And after this first search input, you usually get some suggestions before you get to a list of results. But with these suggestions, you have to assess if they are relevant for you, if you want to do some further filtering, and then need to decide, okay, is this suggestion good to me, or do I need to go one step further? So the next step would be the list of results. And here you have a lot to do. Screen the results, seek validation, try to comprehend all the information and the results, do some additional filtering, sorting, maybe some pagination, assess the relevance, and again, decide, okay, do I have like one result to go one step further again or not? Do I have to go back maybe to reformulate my query? And then when you go to a specific result, again, you have to seek validation, see if this is relevant to you, and decide, is this the information that I wanted to get to or no? So this sounds like a lot, but this process for one result is usually an interaction that is between 10 seconds and 20 seconds. So this sounds not a lot, but if the result is not the desired result, you have to go back. Again, you will screen the list, decide, is the information relevant for me, go to the result, maybe go back, and so on. So what can we do about this? We try to have the results that are as relevant as possible, and maybe offer a shortcut to the user so that he doesn't have to go to the list of results again. So what is nowadays a common thing is that you offer the shortcut from the suggestion directly to the result. So not only suggest terms that you might look for, but the results. And we will have a further look into that with some good practices. So we start with some simple things, with making the search box visible. So this is one thing that is obvious. And here we have one example from the Financial Times website. The search is visible, you would think, because you see this magnify icon, but this is not a good example, because studies show that the text input field, so not only the icon, but the actual field, increases search queries by about 30%. And also, what you want to do is to place it prominently. So the best practice here, and this is, of course, everything that I tell you depends on the context, on the users, on the application that we use, but like in general, studies show that placing it on the top, in the center, leads to the most or the best rate of search queries. So we want to have a good placement, and also what we want to have is a submit button, because also just placing the submit button, even though users, especially on desktop applications, might not necessarily use that, also increases the search queries. Then, of course, the input field should also be long enough so that you don't get your search query cut in the middle. So you should always be seeing what you're typing into it. And also one important thing that you can see, maybe you cannot see it perfectly, on this example of LinkedIn, is that you also should get some visual feedback. Like when you search for something and it's still loading, you should see that. And this is also one thing that is important in regards to the search box. And then coming back to auto suggestions, there we have different types of auto suggest. We have auto suggest before typing, so you put your focus into the input and then immediately suggest box pops out below, like here in this example in Stack Overflow, where you also have suggestions to specific prefixes to already narrow down your input beforehand to find a more specific result. And then also for YouTube, you have auto-suggest. For example, this was my recent search. I searched for OpenResearch, Albanian hits, and today's Frontend Meetup. So when I put my focus into the YouTube search, it immediately shows me my last search queries. And also, for example, Microsoft Teams does a really good job here because there the suggestions are also a little bit context-based, where you immediately have filters to search for messages, files, but also can search directly in the chat that is currently opened. So this is like a context-based auto-suggest. These are just some examples what you can do with auto-suggest before typing. Then, of course, you also have auto-suggest while typing. For example, here, when you put in search and it shows the recent searches, now opposed to the example before with YouTube. This is not personalized. Here you have like a summary of recent searches of all users of that platform, and it shows the most used search terms that include this one term search. And also here, Google, when I again search for Pristina, it shows me Pristina flights, Pristina weather, airport, and so on. But you notice one difference between these two examples. The first one is highlighting the search term that I have as an input, and the other one on Google is highlighting the other part. And here we also have one practice that is better. And I think you can see it with these examples. It's the second one, because when you highlight the differences rather than the similarities, then these suggestions stand out more. And then, of course, you also have auto-suggest with instant results. Now we come back to this shortcut that I talked about earlier, where here in this example of Confluence, when you type in marketing strategy, you immediately have actual results. So it's not suggesting the term, it's suggesting a result. And also what is nice here is that these results are displayed differently, dependent on the type of content. So you have these icons for normal pages, then this a sheet icon for this Excel file, and also have some instant filters within the auto-suggest. So this is a really good example that I like a lot. But, there's also a but, of course, there's always a but. Suggested terms that return zero results or irrelevant results are worse than are unhelpful. They sidetrack users and are downright irritating. So, really important thing here is, if auto-suggest doesn't offer a faster, more reliable path to a good result, then don't use it. This is really important. It's not like, okay, I heard auto-suggest is the good thing, it offers the shortcut, only when it offers relevant results. So this is one thing in search in general. The search has to be performant, has to offer relevant results. So if this is not the case, and if you have a backend maybe that doesn't offer this, then maybe it's better to not use it. Another thing to consider is also visual confirmation, which also depends heavily on the context. Like here with IKEA, when you search for a table, you see the search results showing the picture of the table, and then the titles, which for IKEA, of course, do not have table in it, but have titles like Linmann or Lackkapten or other stuff. But it's still okay because you're searching for a table, you see it immediately, and you know you have this visual confirmation if this is what you're looking for. But now imagine if IKEA would not use images, then it would look like this. And here, when searching for a table, you would kind of get lost because you don't have a quick confirmation if this is the information that you were looking for. Then also you can customize the presentation of the results. As mentioned before with this Confluence example, you have different type of content that shows up in the results. And like 20 years ago, you would show everything in a list, don't differentiate it. But here, the best example for me is Google. Here I searched for Pristina Mall, and as it is a place, of course, it shows me all the place relevant data, like the Google Maps, with the information, how long is it open and so on. Then here we have the website of Pristina Mall, TripAdvisor reviews. Then what's also cool on Google, you have like some frequently asked questions and answers, and then also videos. And you see all of this different type of data is visualized in a different way. So what Google is doing here is it actually offers me a customized landing page for my individual search query. And this is really cool. So if you're working with a system where you also like have different type of data, think of also displaying this differently, because specific data can then stand out more in opposite of other things. And maybe like when you're searching for documents, if it is a software which is really relying on documents, then you can display this also differently and highlight specific things. So this is always good. But again, it depends on the context. Then you have things like expert search and advanced search. One example from Jira, maybe most of you guys know this search. In Jira, you can not only use a traditional search, but can also use the JQL language to search. And I know, in fact, a lot of users that prefer this search, including me in Jira, because it's for this system, it's just a good way to find stuff easily, and the users that are using it are very familiar with this type of input. So this is what we consider an expert search. But you also have advanced search, which shows up somewhere else than the traditional search. For example, in GitHub, you also have advanced search where you have more input fields, where you can narrow down what you're looking for. And this is also something that is there, that is maybe not used that often, but like in specific use cases, it can be very helpful. And then, of course, one obvious thing, sort and filter. I don't know any search anymore which does not have sorting and filtering options. And one example here is from the job platform Indeed, where you would look for a job as a software engineer. And there you would not only look for that with the term, but maybe have the preference to only work remote. It should be in a specific area. So this is type of search where the filters are very helpful. Also again, Jira, where you can filter for specific projects, for specific status, for the issues. And also, and like this, I think this is an example where you need filters a lot, is like booking platforms, because especially here you need to filter, okay, has it a good review, has it breakfast included, has it a sauna, has it a jacuzzi, is it a 5-star hotel, and so on. But yeah, this is an example that I really like a lot, because I don't know any booking platform that doesn't have filters, and they usually have a lot of filters. And people are not like overwhelmed with this amount of filters for booking platforms because they're used to it, and they also need it and they're using it. And one important thing here is that you always should display active filters. And this can also be displayed in different ways, like really specifically displaying the filter, or for some filters where you have filter categories and you selected a lot of filters, it's not always possible to show all them. Then you would maybe show a number of, for example here, job type, you have 2 active filters, but at least show that you have active filters, otherwise you will get lost. And then you can also have personalization in search, as seen before, my personalized YouTube search with my last searches, or also again Microsoft Teams, where you would have suggestions for people that you were chatting with lately, or your last search queries. So this is always also something that is very helpful for users when it's personalized. And one thing, especially for mobile applications, and especially for applications that you maybe use on the go when you're on the street and not like totally focusing on it, is voice input, like Google Maps, just putting in your voice input instead of putting in a long, complex address where you also make typos and so on. Or also like Amazon offers it. Almost every mobile platform from the like well-known apps offer voice input. Also YouTube, of course, or also the Safari mobile app. As you could see with these examples, it's in regards to design not just about how it looks like and how it feels like, it's even more about how it works. And this is what I also meant with the auto-suggest example. It's important how it works. You can have an auto-suggest that looks fancy and pops up and has shadows and what, I don't know, but doesn't matter when it doesn't work. So this is one important thing. And with that being said, we all can move to some bad practices and pitfalls that you can have here. For example, coming back to auto-suggest, and now an example how it would be when it doesn't work, a weird auto-suggest suggestions. Like on this website, it's the CIA website, where you have a search for countries, and you have an auto-suggest, and you put in NE, and the suggestion list is ordered alphabetically. It's not ordered by relevance. And so it shows Brunei as the first result because it has NE in it, but it doesn't show Netherlands, which actually would start with NE. So this is a really bad example. Also here one example from a user that searched for the game Chorus on the Microsoft Xbox app. And here you can see the game Chorus doesn't even show up at the top results. The real result, it was somewhere below, like at the bottom of this list, but you would expect it, like when you type this title even in, that it would show up at as the first result, but it was not this way. So also here, obviously you have something in the system that does not work well in regards of this relevance sorting. Then, coming back to this extended advanced search, you can have a cognitive overload for the user. Like this is the advanced Google book search where you have many fields and options, but the user might just get overwhelmed with this view. So here, the thing is, you don't have to reveal everything at once. You can hide specific things. You can make some parts collapsible so that the first impression for the user is not, whoa, okay, where do I have to start? But like structure the inputs a little bit into groups and so on. And also one thing, don't overrate pagination. We see this still a lot of times, like this classical pagination, but let's be honest, who expects the perfect result at page 9 or page 31? Instead, just use a show more button. This is more modern, and there's no need for this pagination anymore. Don't overrate it. And then, of course, we have some additional pitfalls, like lack of synonym recognition or literal matching when it comes to search. Like when you would search for a laptop and it doesn't give you any result because they would only show up with notebook. So this would also be a pitfall. Or ignoring the user intent. Like, let's say the user is on a website and use the website search for a subscription-based product and searches for cancel subscription, but the system is only searching for subscription because it doesn't have the keywords cancel, and it offers you a article which like promotes the subscription. You would not look for that. Or poor result ranking, like the example shown before, like when you have no relevance in the list. Or the absence of filters and sorting. This is a must. Filters and sorting is a must. And then one pitfall would also be like poor handling of errors and misspellings. Like when you have one typo and you get 0 results, better thing would be either to recognize this or to offer you, did you maybe mean X, Y, Z instead of ABC? And also like missing feedback for 0 results lists. Like there's no worse thing that having no results and you get to a results page and it just shows 0 results. Instead, maybe suggest some similar products, or also like suggest, you might notice like with this and this filters that you have chosen, I have no results, but putting out this and this, I would have these following results and stuff like this. So offer the user something that he stays here and doesn't get frustrated. And of course, slow performance. Like again, when we talk about auto-suggest, worst thing is that as soon as the user enters another character, that you have to wait 5 seconds again before it shows the next result. Yeah, so these were some good examples, some bad examples. But I think what's also interesting is what is when it comes to AI, from queries to conversations. So how will AI influence the behavior of search? And also there we have some aspects that we need to look at, some things, some concepts that we know already for years, some new things popping out. And we start with semantic search. So the bigger platforms that we know, all of them use semantic search. For example, when you search on Amazon, and type in chair for small balcony. Then Amazon will not search for products that have balcony in the title or in the description, but they will try to interpret what you're searching for. Like, what does a chair for small balcony needs to have? Like, needs to be, of course, small, maybe thin, maybe foldable, maybe made up of some material that is suitable for using outdoors, and so on. And then something newer are these AI overviews and summaries. For example, when I search for hamstring injury on Google, first of all, I get a nice summary and overview of what this is. I have a list of symptoms, then a grades of this injury, also the same on Bing, where I get a nice summary of this injury. So these overviews are really something that might be helpful also as a first step, where you also have this shortcut. You maybe don't need to look further because you have this informational intent. And then, of course, conversational search. Also, every one of us knows this. For example, ChatGPT, you ask something, you get an answer, then you refine it, you get an answer, then you correct it, you get an answer, and so on. You go back and forth, then you leave it, come back later, and follow up where you left off. So this is really cool thing here. So this is also for, especially for informational search, something really cool. But this AI chatbots are also cool when it comes to shortcuts. Like when I have transactional intent, where like years ago, when I formulate an email and you need maybe a template or something, you would look for the template and adapt it. But nowadays you just say, please formulate this and this for me, and you have this shortcut to the information that you wanted. But, also here, but generative AI is reshaping how people search for information, but long-standing habits persist. So search habits are really sticky with people. So when you're used to scanning lists, you will not stop that from today to tomorrow. And also, AI doesn't eliminate the need of search. It rather complements it somehow. That you maybe start with an AI chatbot and then follow up on a traditional search engine or a product website and so on. And what's also important here, like we people, we are from tech industry, we get used to this easily. Our habits can change more easily, but this doesn't apply to most consumers. Like when you think maybe of your parents or I don't know, this doesn't apply to most of the consumers yet. So let's have a short conclusion. As you could see, there is no single best practice. It always depends. Search is sometimes complex, sometimes it's simple, sometimes maybe a good auto-suggestion can beat a semantic search when it's really performing well. Then designing search is a process. It's not a static screen, so placing an input field on a mock-up screen is not enough. You have to think about things like micro-interactions, auto-suggest, loading animations. What do you do when you have 0 results? How do you display the results for different types of content, and so on. And also, design and engineering have to work closely together. So this includes UX and UI, it includes front-end engineering, but it also heavily includes back-end, because there you have the APIs, things like semantic search, trying to boost your performance, to have a relevance-based sorting, but it also includes data science, because it's also about content, and also about understanding content and synonyms and stuff like that. And it also includes analytics, because you also need to look at some insights. What are the people really looking for? Do I have search queries that don't have any results? Do I have to change something here? So this is also very important. And again, AI is complementing, but it's not replacing traditional search. And in regards to search, you have to continuously tune your search based on behavior and data. And the perfect example for this is also like Google's PageRank algorithm. You always have to look into the data. You always have to adapt and refine. So it's not just one thing that is finished, it's an ongoing process. And with that being said, I hope I could give you some further insights, like maybe something to think about, or maybe something that you found interesting, and that you have in your mindset that good search is not just a feature. Search is an ecosystem. And with that, I thank you all for your attention. And yeah, if you have any questions, thank you.